welcome back to the Kindling Project podcast. Our guest today, Mallory Brown, is an adventure traveler, humanitarian filmmaker, and motivational speaker. She transformed her passion for helping others into a powerful career promoting global kindness. Mallory has traveled to over 60 countries, spoken to audiences internationally, and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for charities fighting poverty. Her story inspires everyone to live a passionate and generous life. Hey, Mallory, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Melissa. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, we're excited about your story, about your marathon that you're walking all over the globe. Tell us a little bit about Walk a Mile.
A handful of years ago, I started a project called Walk a Mile, which is a documentary series. And it's based on the concept or the proverb, don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Right?
So the concept is that I travel to different parts of the world and actually physically step into the shoes of an impoverished woman and walk a figurative mile in her shoes. And I make a short documentary film about that experience. And so the series will be 26 episodes long because there's 26 miles in a marathon.
Right.
And so it will go to 26 different countries and it will tell the story of 26 different women. And then every single episode raises funds for a local women's charity. So it's, I think of it like an Anthony Bourdain series where every episode's in a different country and you kind of bop around the world and learn a lot about what women are facing in a very personal way. It's a very one-on-one. You have a woman's story. You learn her name, her family, her situation, become, emotionally invested in this woman. And then as a viewer, if you want to donate to help her or other women in her community, you have the direct opportunity to do that.
And where are you getting the viewership from? Is it online?
Yeah, it's all online. It's really just my personal following. I've been doing humanitarian work for over a decade and I've traveled all over the globe and sort of built this following of people who are just looking for ways to give back. I know a lot of people feel like they want to help and they don't know what to do or where to give or where their money will be actually used on the ground.
Right.
Most people have very generous hearts. They're just missing like the link.
Right.
And so people that have supported me that, I show them exactly who it's going to help. And this is a story. And I think they feel so much more connected to the cause on the ground.
Oh, absolutely. And how did you get the idea? I mean, when you decided to start documenting it, had you already done documentary filmmaking or video making before?
I had, yes. So Walk a Mile is like the latest segment of my career. I can start at the beginning and sort of share the story with you if you want. But so I got into this whole field from a traveler's perspective. So going way back, so I grew up in Metro Detroit. I was raised in Farmington Hills. I had a fairly normal upbringing. I went to a small liberal arts college in Michigan called Albion College.
Okay.
And then and at that point I hadn't really traveled a lot. I wasn't like this global woman.
Right.
But when I graduated from college, I went backpacking with a friend just as a celebratory trip.
Yep.
And it really, really changed my perspective. I went to Indonesia and Thailand and I saw what, I consider to be true poverty for the first time. And my trip was it was so transformative for me. And I came home from that, and I've always been a very creative person. My father's a filmmaker, so I have a little bit of that in my blood. And I was already working in different arts, different creative fields, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And it took me a couple of years to figure out how to actually start my own business and make money doing this. But when I was 24, I decided I'm going to full-time become a social entrepreneur. And at that point, I created a totally separate company from Walk a Mile, but it was the same philosophy of it was a clothing company. And I sold t-shirts and sweatshirts on an online retail store. And it was buy one, give one. So I would give away the same amount of clothes to people in need. And I would travel and deliver those clothes and then film that experience and send it back to my customers.
Oh.
So it was like this full circle experience through clothing. So if you purchased a t-shirt from me and I delivered another t-shirt to someone in Kenya, you would receive an email saying, here's the village and someone received a t-shirt. Thank you for your purchase. And so I really believed in showing people where their money is going.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran that company for 7 years. It was called World Clothesline.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to a point where I really found that I could be more effective helping on the ground if I was raising funds instead of giving away items.
Yeah.
So then I sort of switched and I started making documentary films that raised money.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody hates to hear that because people love to give stuff.
Right.
And,
right.
It is helpful. And locally, it's fantastic to give stuff.
Right.
But internationally, really, with the cost of shipping and dealing
Logistics.
with all of that, it's so much more effective to just give money. So then I started filming different campaigns around the world, different causes. I did a whole series where I would it was like a flash fundraiser series where I would try to raise money in 24 hours. And then eventually I landed on the concept that I really wanted to help women and I wanted to be women's focused. So that's where Walk a Mile, that's where the concept came, that I could do this for women and showcase all the different issues that women face around the world. And it launched from there. I mean, it's I'm 37 now, so I've been doing this full time for 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's ever changing and it's quite an adventurous career path.
Oh, I absolutely love it. And I think so many of the women that have joined the Kindling Project community, they have a social impact oriented Kindling project in mind. Either they want to run for some kind of office or they want to start their own nonprofit, or they've been working for corporate America and they want to give back in some sort of public way. So your story is just a fantastic example of that. And just the ability that you have to see a problem and assign yourself the solution, right? I think that's super powerful. I think that's you're on mile 10 now with Walk a Mile. Is that what I read?
Yes, I just launched mile 10.
Yeah.
So the story went live last week, and it was in Israel.
Okay.
Which was very cool. I tried to show the more extreme cultures of the world because it's interesting for people to watch, and they really I'm a lover of culture and travel, and I want to see all of those unique corners of the world. What I've learned from all my travels is that people in general everywhere are very similar. And so if you go to Israel or you go to India or you go to South Africa, the average person is pretty similar. So I try to choose like a tribe in South Africa and, something that's a more extreme culture to feature so we get the spectrum of humanity.
Right.
So in Israel, I walked with an ultra-Orthodox Jewish woman, which is the most extremely devout, religious sector of Israel. And it was fascinating. It was just so interesting to learn about their culture and, the different gender roles that they have. And And then even when you go to these extremes, you still find similarities between people. You still see
Right.
people are just people, even if they're wearing a loincloth or they're dressed in their ultra conservative outfits. They're
Right.
we're all searching for the same things in life.
Right. And we all have those, especially as women, probably very similar set of priorities for the people we love, the people we care for, communities we're
Absolutely.
in.
The all of the women I've walked with have been mothers, and I mostly walk with women that are over the age of 30, so they tend to have children.
Mm.
And at the end of every, all my trips, I always ask them, if you could have anything in the world, what would you want? And without fail, they say, I want my kids to have a better life than I have. Or I want my
Right.
kids to know they can do anything. Or I just want my kids to succeed. That is just the
Yeah.
universal answer. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Right. Right. That's part of what we carry as women. So, speaking of which, you're about to be a mom, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm pregnant with twins right now.
How exciting. How exciting.
Thanks.
How do you
Yeah.
think how do you think that's going to, well, you probably can't even predict, but I'm sure that's going to impact your work and how you
It
see your
definitely
work.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I mean, I certainly won't be able to travel as much as I do currently,
Right.
but I'm also a big believer in that, your lifestyle is what you make it. And so I fully intend to raise little adventurous toddlers that I strap on my back and, they travel with me, and
Yep.
we'll just have to work on logistics. But yeah, I think, you know, you learn so much when you travel as extensively as I do, and I don't see the international travel as such a like a hurdle as many other American moms do, because I see families when I go places, and I
Right.
meet families, and I see, okay, there's little kids that grow up on the side of this road in Cambodia. So why can't I bring my kids to Cambodia?
Exactly.
It's there's people everywhere, and there's families everywhere, and there's children everywhere. Um so yeah, it's just, you just got to get them on the plane, and then it's
Exactly.
all good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think you're going to do it. I mean, my two are teenagers. I've got a high schooler and a college, freshman in college, but we definitely traveled with them. We moved a lot around the United States for work. So they've lived in a handful of states, and then they've been to a couple other countries. And I think it's good for their perspective. I mean, logistics aside, and, you got to deal with all that stuff. But, um, time and time again, a story like yours where you were traveling and it inspired you to do work. I feel like let's get that inspiration to young people sooner. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm all for it.
absolutely.
I'm all for
I,
it.
I do. I so I recently got married. I got
Hmm.
married in January of this year, and I took a trip, like a walk a mile filming trip,
Hmm.
um, for my honeymoon, and we went to Morocco, and it was interesting because I felt even more connected to the women now that I was married,
Right.
because most of them are married, and um, previously I'd been this really like independent American woman in my mid 30s, doing my
Right.
career.
S-
And
Single
but
lady.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Being married, I just felt a deeper bond with the women. And I'm sure once I become a mother, I'll feel an even deeper bond. And it might even bring me closer to my work, because I'll understand so much more, what these women actually mean when they say they want a good life for their kids.
I think I heard you say in one of your YouTube clips that leave room for miracles, and miracles happen with connection. And I think that's what you're describing is, whenever we make these connections, whether it's through motherhood or through marriage or through cultural beliefs, there's room for miracles. I loved that you said that.
Yeah, it's a big part of of just sort of the way that I approach my work.
Hmm.
I so the miracle thing is kind of twofold. So I've always been very um micro focused, like one person, one cause, one village, one school, like that's what we're trying to help. So for the people that are starting their kindling projects, and you have these big goals of like, I want to save the world, or I want
Right.
to, save the whales. Like, pick
Right.
one whale,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
then save one. And
Yeah.
so it makes it so much more approachable when you do it that way. And then when you're actually interacting with one other human being,
Yeah.
it leaves so much room for just like synchronicity to happen in
Yeah.
life. And um, I have so many stories of like a random person that I met somewhere, and then somewhere else in the world, I run into them. Or
Right.
I've gone back a lot of times to revisit the people that I've helped. Like 4 years later, I'll go back and see where they are and to see what comes from this beautiful interaction between people. And a lot of times the it's like I set out there with a certain intention, like I'm going to go and tell this story and raise this amount of money. But in raising awareness for the cause, some other partner will come in, or organization will come in, and it just like fills a different need that I wasn't even expecting.
Yeah.
One of the best stories I have about miracles is I met a homeless man in Las Vegas. This was before Walk a Mile. I was doing a campaign for homelessness, and he had been homeless for 20 years. And in Las Vegas, there's these tunnels underneath the city, and
Oh, wow.
homeless people live underground. They live in tunnels, like think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like
Oh, like
that's
a sewer system or
yeah, it's like a flood channel actually.
okay.
So it's for when the few times a year it rains in Vegas, it washes the rain out of the city. But homeless people live down there, and
Oh,
there's no electricity, there's no plumbing, there's no privacy. You're just totally exposed. Like you climb down a drain pipe to get into this tunnel, and then that's where
mm,
you're gonna live. It's a brutal environment. And anyway, I met a man. His name was Billy, and he had lived there for 20 years. And I asked him, like I ask everyone, if you could have anything, what would you want? And he said he wanted to hold his children before he died. And he had lost touch with his kids when he became homeless. So it'd been like 20 years since he'd seen his children. He didn't really know where they were because he was not from Vegas.
hmm.
He grew up in North Carolina, or he had his kids in North Carolina. And, it'd been 20 years. And
Right.
and I'm like, I'm here to help you. I think I can raise some money. I can get you some supplies. I can improve your quality of life. I don't know how to reconnect you to your kids. I don't know if your kids want you in their life.
Right.
This is just really not not in my pay grade,
Right. Right.
But
Right.
I ran a campaign for him. I told his story, raised a bunch of money. We bought him a bike, so he had some transportation. I got him bus cards and phone cards and clothes and shoes and socks, and I found a dentist to give him dentures.
Hmm.
We did all of this stuff to try to improve his quality of life.
Right.
And then that was it. Like my campaign was over. I went back home, and because my stuff is published online,
Hmm.
I received an email from a young woman who saw my video on YouTube, and she asked what Billy's last name was because she thought it was her father.
Wow.
And it was true. Like, it was Billy's daughter who'd reconnected with her dad through my YouTube video. And so I got him a Greyhound bus ticket, and he took a bus she lived in Houston now. And she found him a job and a place to live. And his whole life transformed. If you could see the before and after photos of this man, he went from being a homeless guy living underground to being a hardworking Texan. Like, he has a steady job. He bought his own home. He drives a truck. He sees his daughter. She's got grandkids. He moved his second daughter to Houston. So now both of his kids and all of his grandkids live within walking distance of his house. Like, his whole life transformed. And, I didn't really do anything. I just opened the window for that to happen.
Right.
Like, I just told his story, and it all came together. His daughter
one little
found
connection,
him.
right?
Yeah, and so and that happens all the time. It's what you don't expect. The universe just it brings to the surface, and that's one of the most beautiful parts about my work. Really, is that it really, for me personally, I trust so much more in people. I trust that the right things are going to happen because I see it happen all the time. I just see things work out.
And what advice would you give to somebody who's inspired by your story and they want to do something similar? Where do they start?
Start small. Just start super, super small. And because when you start small, you make progress.
Right.
And you see it really isn't that hard to do one small thing, and you'll see an impact from that. And so, think of it if you say, like, oh, I want to end world hunger. Like,
right.
Okay, that's crazy. I mean,
right.
Great. If you could do it, fantastic.
Right,
but that's quite the goal.
Right.
But if you said, I just want to feed one hungry person,
that
is so easy. I mean, get in your car, drive, when you come across a homeless person, pull over, ask them, like, this would be an incredible thing to do, is ask them, hey, what's your favorite food? And then go get their food, bring it back to them. You fed a person, but also showed them dignity, showed them kindness. You could, in that simple act, you could transform the trajectory of that person's life, because people really need to feel seen, and they need to feel heard. And when you treat someone who's hurting like a human being, it goes so far. And so, yeah, I would say just start small and just start. The barrier to entry for kindness is nothing.
Every day, right?
Anyone can do it. And so, and I think people are always also surprised. They think you need some sort of qualification in order to help this, or I don't have my own nonprofit, or I don't, have any experience in this, or I don't have a degree. And if you go walk into an animal clinic, or a homeless shelter, or a church, or a women's shelter, or there is no qualifications necessary. Volunteers are needed anywhere,
Right.
You can go rake your elderly neighbor's yard, and that's, it's so much easier than people make it out to be in their head.
Right. There's sort of this idea that you have to set up an official nonprofit status, or get a board, or do all those things, which all those things probably do take place over time, but that's not really where you need to start.
Exactly. And it's better just to start doing and letting, and then you'll see what works and what you enjoy, and what do you want to repeat. And You'll learn lessons as you do it.
Hmm.
And you may get to the point that you need to start a nonprofit. You may not. I mean,
Right.
I do this full time. I don't
Hmm.
have my own nonprofit.
Right.
I raise money for other nonprofits. And then when my projects require my own, I have a fiscal sponsor. Um, that's the way financially it all works best for my business model. And it's simpler. It's so much easier. And this is my full-time job. So,
Right.
um, if you're looking to do something on the side or as a hobby or a passion, or you certainly don't need to go through that process, at
Right.
least to start. So yeah, just get out there, have conversations with people. Even for entrepreneurs, that even if you're not in the nonprofit world, but you have a business idea, I always tell people, like, my advice is tell someone new your idea every day for an entire year. So 365 people. Tell
Right.
them about your idea. Get feedback, gauge interest. You'll gauge your own enthusiasm for this project.
Right.
Are
Right.
you getting more excited? Or are you getting less excited? And
Right. Is it clear to you what you're doing? I have that
right,
sometimes. I tend to be, I tend to chase shiny objects, right? And so there's like 100 things I'm doing, and sometimes just talking about it helps me get clear. Oh, actually, back to step two. That's where we left off. That's where we are now.
right,
So fix or
and then
clarity.
right, and you'll also um, sort of as a bonus,
Hmm.
you'll start to build this group of people that are already supporting you because they
Right.
know about what you're doing. And you'll already have 350, 65, however many followers, so to say, or supporters or customers or whatever. So yeah, it's really doing small things over and over and over again. That's how
Right.
I have found success.
So the steps I'm getting from you is one step at a time, right? Little
Hmm.
little bite at a time, and then I also, you had said a couple times, see the people, not the problem. Do you want to elaborate on that one?
Yes. I find so often that it's easy to point out problems, um, whether this is like a global problem or a problem in your marriage or in your family, or, we can say what's wrong all day long. You ask
Yeah.
someone like in your business, what's wrong, or um, in your job or your workplace, what's wrong. But pointing out problems is not very helpful. I mean, it's good to know, but we
Yeah.
already know. We don't need
Yeah.
to talk about it
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we know, and we know it's wrong.
Right.
If you want to actually solve problems, I find that you need to look at the people, just the people involved.
Right.
Who's affected by this? Who's um, there to help? Who are the players in this game? Maybe who's causing the problem? But when you just look at the people, you see opportunities immediately for solutions. So if you pick like a natural disaster, let's say,
Right.
we see on the news like a hurricane just hit Florida.
Hmm.
That's a big problem.
Right.
Hurricane hit Florida. You think, well, I don't know, I live in Michigan. What am I going to do? But when you think about the people, you think, okay, who are the people that are living in this town? And who do I know in Florida? And what would a person need? And if I was living there, what would I need? And it all of a sudden you say, oh, well, actually, I could call my aunt and see if she's okay. And maybe she knows of people that need some help. And what do they need? And could I send some stuff? Or when you think about people,
Yeah.
there's this like web of ideas that come to you. But when
Right.
you just think about problem, you're
Hmm.
like overwhelmed. And it happens in everything in life, with our jobs, and it's like, oh, we're on a hiring freeze, or, we're facing a recession, or um, we've got like turnover crisis or whatever. And
Right.
we just name the problems all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like, that's not helpful. Now we're all just stressed about a recession or
Right.
stressed about, this problem. And so why not instead focus on people that are involved, and then we can start to find solutions.
This reminds me of, I was watching, I don't know if you've watched this yet, there's a documentary on Netflix right now about the blue zones and people that live to be over 100. Have you seen that?
I haven't, but I know of the blue zones. Yeah.
Yeah, but they kind of do a little summary after each zone of like common denominators, and like again and again and again, the one of the common denominators is that the people have, how would you say it? Like one of the groups was goat farmers, and the fact that it's not that they have any less stress than somebody living in Manhattan, it's that their stress, they have the ability to solve it. They have control over their little herd of goats, right? And so they have stresses every day, but then they have a hand in the solution. And I think that what you're saying reminds me about that, is that when people have like some authority, it's not some giant global problem that one person can't solve. It's, what is my little circle of influence, if you will, and how do I make it better? And then that actually leads to longevity, right? It reduces stress. It makes people, even in very, very meager or modest situations, happier.
Absolutely. And it's, you talk about longevity, and, a lot of people ask me, like, how do I find the motivation to keep going? Or, I choose to focus on extreme poverty. So my work tends to focus on people that live on less than $1 a day. These are the people that are truly in need. We're uneducated. We have little access to food. Sometimes we don't have clean water. Like, that's sort of my preference of focus. And people ask me, like, how is it not depressing all the time?
Right.
Because you've witnessed real human hardship.
Right.
But when I approach my work, like, as you said, with my little circle of influence, and I feel like I'm making progress and I'm helping one person at a time, and I'm seeing the people instead of the problem. And yeah, of course they live in poverty, but I can't change that. But I can see people and I can help people.
Right.
Then to me, I see it's so invigorating. It's like, it gives me so much energy. And even though the circumstances might be really sad or really hard or tough to witness, the end result is not depressing for me. I leave with like a more faith in humanity and more belief in kindness and goodness and a happier person. And yeah, it's just because you feel like I'm not just sitting there wallowing in the problems of the world. I'm out there with my hands dirty, and it feels good.
Right. You're having an impact.
Right.
Right. With essentially kindness.
Exactly. Yeah.
Connection and kindness and listening. I mean, not to devalue dollars and not to devalue solutions, but it just starts with seeing other humans.
It really does. And it's the work that I do, and hopefully those listening will watch, one of my films and one of my stories. They're only 5 minutes long, so they're not like this big commitment.
We'll definitely share a link in all, in the show notes and on all our channels. And if you want to tell people where they can find them.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is travelmal.com. It's MAL, like my name shortened. Mm-hmm. But you can also just look me up on any social media, or my YouTube is Mallory Speaks.
Okay.
And so it's all, you can watch all of the stories and walk a mile, but also all my past clothing deliveries and everything I've ever done. And it may look like a grand production because it's a documentary film, and and people are like, well, I don't have the skill set of that, or I don't know how cameras work or editing or anything. But what my true talent is not in the production of the film. It's really in what you said is connecting with people. Is that I have a genuine interest in other people, and I approach them in a way that they're willing to talk to me. I think if I had to like summarize the talent, that's what it is. I did a campaign for Syrian refugees, and I went into a refugee camp. And, I don't know. I go into most of these situations not knowing very much. I don't know culturally or like all the details. Like, I'm not a specialist in this area at all. I'm just a human being entering in this refugee camp, sitting down with people, asking them to talk to me, and just showing kindness to them, and I think that's a skill set that people can work on because it's really necessary in the world.
Like the world needs more of it. The world needs more of it.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that's really what it's about. And even my work's extreme and I'm going all over the world, but that's even needed just in our day-to-day lives, talking to your family members and your neighbors and your coworkers and your friends, just being someone who's genuinely interested in their lives.
And I think your story about the homeless man in Vegas, there's extreme communities in every community. It's not always underground, but if you're drawn to that, you can find it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in Walk a Mile, I did mile 2 in Detroit, my hometown. I always like to showcase a local cause because need is everywhere. You don't have to go far to find it. And it's hidden in places that you may not suspect. I mean, obviously, if you go to a homeless shelter, you're going to see need. But there's need everywhere. And every income level, and people are hurting out there. People have real... life is hard. So we got to show compassion to each other.
Absolutely. A couple years ago through my agency, we were working with one of the big food banks in Metro Detroit. And one of the things that I had learned from them was that food insecurity, a growing amount of food insecurity is not among homeless. It's people who have homes and they're just making choices between medicine and food, or taxes in food, or some other expense in food. And it's kind of a shocker because you drive through communities and you don't necessarily think that those are places of food insecurity. But, food insecurity is not knowing where your next meal is coming from, even if you have to go to the homeless shelter or a food pantry to get it,
Yeah, exactly. And there's a whole level of people who are not in extreme poverty, like they're not living on less than $1 a day, which, that amount of people in the world is shrinking, which is a great thing.
Right.
But the next level up is still very much in need. There are people that are not starving to death, but they don't have refrigeration.
Right.
They're still... They still need a lot of help, and that's everywhere. People live on that level across the board. I did a campaign in Appalachia, which the counties in eastern Kentucky are like the Appalachian Mountains, and those are the counties in our country that are, from a county perspective, the poorest. Right. It's amazing to see how people live. You would not think that this is the United States when you're driving through. And Um, yeah, it's very unsuspecting. It's just a county, and
Right.
people are in need everywhere.
But it seems to me, while you've seen all of this need or lack or really dire situations around the world, it's giving you more hope and more optimism. How does that work?
Yeah, it has. I
Yeah.
would say I'm one of the more optimistic people that I know.
Yeah.
Um, why is that? I
Yeah.
think
Why is that?
I know, I'm pondering. Perhaps it's because I've seen I've seen what you would consider would break a person or um, wear a person down, and it doesn't. And people are so strong. People are so resilient. I think it takes away a lot of my own fear in life
Right.
of, so much now when you watch like self-development things or you're trying to, improve your own life is to get over your own fear. And people have this like extreme fear of failure, extreme fear of what other people think. And I've seen people that are in the low moments and I realize you survive it, so why be afraid of this and why let this hold you back? Um, and I also find that people who don't have a lot tend to be quite happy people, very giving people, very generous people. Um, we have such a fear of people who are in need or
Mm-hmm.
poor or I don't know what we're so afraid of.
Right.
Just because a person lives in a small house isn't going to make them a scary person.
Right.
And um and so I think I've gotten over that. I realized like, I talk to a lot of homeless people and I'm not afraid of homeless people. And
Right.
other people are like, oh, roll up the window. Don't look, don't look, don't look,
Right.
don't look.
Right.
This light can't turn green fast enough so I can get out of here. I don't know why we're so afraid of that person. It's just a human being and they got a lot of courage to stand there holding a sign.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just taken a lot of my fear of what could go wrong or other people away. And I just sort of live seeing humanity.
What a great life you've built. I feel so proud of you. I'm
Well,
so glad you
thanks.
shared that with us. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's I know I have a different perspective, and um, most people don't have the opportunity or the support to get out of their own bubble the way that I have. I've really been able to expand my worldview and meet other people and learn about other things. But that's what I hope to do in my films is to educate people and that they can sort of take this journey without having to actually leave their house, but they learn about the world and they sort of have this more optimistic and open-minded perspective that I have that I've learned through experience and they can learn through watching.
I love it. So, who supports you? We kind of do this at the end of every episode, maybe a little shout out. You're taking care of so many. Who's taking care of you?
Um, oh my gosh, so many people. I have, I mean, my family is number one. My husband is so supportive of me. He married me, so he knew what he was getting into.
Right.
But
He watched a couple documentary films to be like, where is she going?
yes, yes. Actually, it's a funny story, but um, we met, and then like 3 weeks later, I was leaving for a month to go to Africa, and I had like 3 different filming projects in Africa, and I was thinking like, I don't know if this guy's gonna like wait for me because I'm gone for longer than we've known each other,
Right, right.
But he was like fully there emailing me and picked me up from the airport and like was so invested in the whole thing. And I was like, okay, he's cool with this lifestyle.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, so he's fantastic. And my parents, really a lot of it is my parents. They didn't discourage me from this, which I know, I speak a lot publicly, and sometimes I have parents come up to me and say like, "Oh, my daughter wants to study abroad, but I don't want to let her because you never know what's going to happen." Or you hear like the one news story of the one girl that got kidnapped
Right.
and think that, you're terrified to let your daughter go travel. Um, so I like to talk to those parents and encourage them that this is the best thing they could do for their daughter. Let her go,
Right.
explore, see, grow confident in herself. But so my parents always encouraged me to go. They always found ways to make this work or help me raise money or, um, you know, get my mail while I'm gone and just
Yeah.
like do all the support that I needed to be able to do this lifestyle and not feel like they were just terrified for me back home or couldn't wait for me to fly back home. But so yes, family incredible, and then but also, and I'm sure all people who start kindling projects realize this, but when you express your passions out loud, you
Yes.
attract people into your life
Yes.
that agree with this and they are aligned with this. And so my network of friends, of entrepreneurs, of other socially conscious people, I have this whole network of other humanitarians around the world or travelers that I've met or been connected to that all support each other because I'm very vocal and that this is what I'm passionate about. This is what
Right.
I'm doing. Who else cares about this? And then those people become your friends. Those people
Right.
become your world. And so, anyone, if you decide you wanted to become an artist,
Right.
watch how many artists will start to enter your world, or you want to become a musician. All this, like if you meet a musician, all of their friends are musicians.
Right.
Like their whole world is just like musical.
Right.
And so yeah, I have this great network of friends, and you could call them colleagues or people I bounce ideas off of, or we talk about ways to just new ways of living or doing business, or and they're all really supportive of me. I feel like I have so many people that I can lean on. Yeah, and also when you're just blazing forward, doing what you love, you tend to get rid of the people that don't support it.
Right. They fall they just fall
They
away.
they
You
fall
don't
off.
I feel like you don't even have to get rid of them. They take themselves out.
Right.
Because it doesn't resonate with them. And this is
Right.
something that Monica and I talk to people about all the time. Like, and why we chose some of the language we chose is like if you get in touch with that little inner spark and you put kindling on that true passion inside you, it glows in a way. It's like a beacon for others. You want to be next to the true artist or the author or the humanitarian or the filmmaker or the baker. It really almost doesn't matter what the passion is. If it's authentically you, it's going to somehow like radiate and attract and multiply all of those good things. It's just about listening and acting like, I guess, in alignment. We hear that over and over again about like, just take time to decide and the rest just sort of works itself out. The people come. The community shows
They
up.
really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It happens, and it's and I think it's just the the I'm trying to speak to the people who like don't know what their passion is. I
Yep.
think it's also that's also a barrier because they think like, oh, well, she knows what she loves. She knows she wants to help people internationally and travel and blah, film make. But I don't know. What am I? I don't know. I just want to do something, but I'm not really sure. Like, and that's why it's like back again. Just start small. Just start with something. Just
Right.
see what takes like what happens, who enters your life, and does that path work, and does momentum build, and pivot.
Right.
I've pivoted so many times in my life, and I mean, right now I'm writing my first book.
Oh,
I've
cool.
never written a book before, so I'm not an author,
Hmm.
but I'm entering that world and testing it out and seeing how it goes. And maybe if we talk again in 5 years, I'll be an author, and I'll have all of
Oh,
these,
you will be. You will
publishing
be.
friends.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that will be the next phase. And so it's also just like, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Just start moving. Just
Hmm.
start doing something, and it will figure itself out.
And I think when I hear women say, "Oh, I don't have a kindling project or I don't have a passion, I just want to retire. Or I just want to be on my boat." I never buy that. Monica calls it sleeping beauties, but I think that like when you lose time or when it doesn't feel like work or when it feels inspired. We all know what that is for us. I mean, just get quiet and wait for it. I think everybody has it.
Oh, absolutely. And it may come in an unsuspecting way.
Right.
My my husband and I, this is a whole story for a different day, but we went sailing
Hmm.
over during COVID. We bought a sailboat, and we took 2 years and went sailing around the Caribbean.
Oh,
But
wow.
neither of us were sailors when we started this whole thing. So we
So
just
that seems almost reckless to me. How did you do that?
we as I say, start small. I mean, it was a
Right.
big life change, but yeah, COVID hit. We were quarantining together. We were both working from home. We thought this might be a time to go on an adventure. Um, and neither of us knew how to sail, but we were watching YouTube. We were watching sailing channels.
Uh-huh.
And so then at night, my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, but he would go on Boat Trader, which is like a used boat website,
Hmm.
and spend hours,
Right.
hours looking up sailboats. And I was like, man, he's into this. And who knew? I mean, he didn't know. I didn't
Right.
know.
Right.
Neither of us had ever, sailing was not on our radar at all. But he became super passionate about sailing. And I'm down for adventures and travel, so I was in. But it's sometimes it's just might be like a total random pivot you never expected.
Yeah.
But if it's something that, yeah, you lose time, you're up late at night
Right.
researching this thing, that's it.
If it feels more like fun than work, that's usually
Yes.
that's usually where I like to live. Right.
Right, right.
Oh, oh my gosh. Well, I just love you and your husband and your story. And thank you so much for sharing it with our community. Um, I don't know if you're already in, but join our Facebook community, the Kindling Project Ignite. And I'm sure there's women there that will have questions for you. We'd love to have you share your next documentary. Or any of the short pieces that you'd like to share with our community. And we will include where people can get in touch with you in all the show notes and what have you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much. And yes, I can't wait to meet all of the women in the community.
Ah, we welcome you. What a great adventure you're on, and I'm sure we will find ways to help and to collaborate in the future.
I believe it. Miracles happen all the time.
Yeah, I really like that idea that the miracles are in the connection. I'm going to keep that from looking at your website and talking to you today.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Okay, talk to you soon.